F1 has seen a number of controversial rule changes over its 70-plus year history. But one rule change in particular stands out among them, one that is still loathed by fans almost 2 decades on. We are talking about the controversial 2005 rule set, which introduced one key rule change that broke F1, brought an end to Michael Schumacher's dominant run, and produced one of the most infamous episodes in the sport. F1 doesn't shy away from changing rules on the fly to stop one team from dominating the sport, and this is exactly what the series organizers did back in 2005 in a desperate attempt to curb Ferrari and Schumacher's dominance. Formula One imposed a controversial ban on tire changes during pit stops. While the new rule did achieve its main objective, it was so poorly received by fans, teams, and drivers that F1 decided to scrap it after one season. Let's remember the infamous rule set and how it completely broke Formula One. How it all started: Schumacher's dominant 2004 season. Before we get to the controversial 2005 rule change, we need to go back to the year before that. Following a tight title fight in 2003, which came down to the last round, Ferrari worked hard on its 2004 contender, and the Scuderia delivered one of the fastest, most dominant cars in the history of F1 as a result. The legendary F2004 was unveiled on January 26. A month later, Ferrari took its new machine to Imola for a 3-day test. The results were so good, they left the team's engineers at a loss for words. Early simulation runs predicted that the F2004 would gain just under a second on its predecessor, the F2003J. But following Schumacher's first runs, the car was lapping over 1.5 seconds faster than predicted. Ferrari's engineers were so dumbfounded, they decided to call the test off, fearing a timing screen glitch or that the car had been accidentally set up below the minimum weight. However, after conducting a detailed 12-hour investigation, the team found nothing wrong. The F2004 had, indeed, blown every prediction out of the water. As expected, Schumacher and Ferrari dominated the season. The Germans set a new F1 record with 13 wins, with teammate Rubens Barrichello adding another 3 wins to the tally. Ferrari won the Constructors' Championship by scoring 262 of the 324 points available, more than twice the points of runner-up Bar. While the driver car combo was the main reason behind the dominant year, the formula also had another key component: Ferrari's close relationship with Japanese tire maker Bridgestone. F1 Tire Wars. Bridgestone versus Michelin. Over its first 50 years, F1 alternated between having a single tire provider and forcing tire wars between multiple makers. In 2001, French tire maker Michelin returned to the sport following a 17-year hiatus. Michelin struggled against the already established Bridgestone, but it all changed in 2003. Running a much softer compound, Michelin-shod teams enjoyed a considerable advantage, winning 8 of the first 13 races. For 2004, BAR and Sauber made the switch from Bridgestone to Michelin. That left the Japanese supplier with only 3 teams: Ferrari, plus backmarkers Jordan and Minardi. Bridgestone and Ferrari worked hard to develop softer tires for the 2004 season and delivered extremely successful results. The Italian team was able to make up for the higher tire wear with sheer pace, running light fuel loads, and doing qualifying-style stints. One good example was the French Grand Prix, which Schumacher won with a 10-second margin despite having to make an extra pit stop. Fearing a repeat of the 2004 season in 2005, the FIA decided to take matters into its own hands. Ban on tire changes. Midway through the 2004 season, the FIA announced an amendment to the 2005 rule set, justifying the changes as a safety measure to reduce cornering speed. Motorsport's governing body decided to limit teams to 2 tire sets over a race weekend. This included running the same set through qualifying and the race. And, to make matters even worse, teams weren't allowed to change tires during pit stops. As a result, Bridgestone and Michelin would be forced to run significantly harder compounds, which would make the cars slower. The rule change, which was clearly aimed at stopping Schumacher's domination, provided the Michelin-shod teams with a key advantage. The French maker designed its tires around a much softer sidewall, which made the compound much more flexible, allowing the tread to move around and generate more heat. Bridgestone's tires, on the other hand, had a stiff sidewall. With not enough time to change their tire design, the Japanese manufacturer and Ferrari saw their strength turn into a major weakness. Forced to run on much harder rubber for 2005, Bridgestone tires would naturally struggle to generate heat as its tire architecture lacked the flexibility allowed by Michelin's softer sidewalls. The rule change worked as intended. Schumacher only scored 5 podium finishes and had to settle for a distant third in the standings. Fernando Alonso, who had mastered the new tire rules by deploying an extremely unorthodox driving technique, outdueled Kimi Räikkönen to win his first world championship. However, the new rule set was responsible for one of the most infamous episodes in the history of Formula One, the 2005 United States Grand Prix. How the ban on tire changes rule broke F1. On the sporting side, the rule change was a success. Not only did it stop Schumacher and Ferrari from dominating another season, but it also produced an intense championship fight between Alonso and Räikkönen. But the ban on tire changes also created major problems, causing a string of problems over the first half of the season. The first signs appeared during the Monaco Grand Prix, when Alonso and teammate Giancarlo Fisichella tumbled down the order because of massive tire wear. The Renault pair crossed the line with almost no rubber left on their treads. In the following race, the European Grand Prix, held at the Nürburgring, it was Räikkönen who ran into trouble. After comfortably jumping to the lead on lap 1, the McLaren driver consistently stretched the gap over title rival Alonso. And then, on lap 32, trying to lap Jacques Villeneuve, Räikkönen locked up his unloaded front right tire into turn 1. What would have been an almost inconsequential mistake turned into a massive headache for the Finn. Unable to swap to a new set, Räikkönen was forced to run on the flat-spotted rubber until the end of the Grand Prix. The flat spot only grew larger as the race progressed, causing a growing vibration. As a result, the increased stress and load on the McLaren suspension became a concern, and then, heading into turn 1 on the final lap, the MP420 suffered a catastrophic right front suspension failure. Räikkönen was sent spinning into the gravel and out of the race in dramatic fashion. But that wouldn't be the last major problem caused by the 2005 regulations. It all came to a head in the United States Grand Prix, a 6-car race, the 2005 US GP farce. For decades, F1's right holder FOM had dreamed of conquering the American market. Following a decade-long absence, Formula One returned to the US in 2000, racing at the legendary Indianapolis Motor Speedway. After a highly successful first race, interest dwindled, and by 2005, F1 was already struggling to sell tickets for the event. But things were about to get a lot worse. The Indianapolis road course layout used one of the speedway's banked corners. F1 cars, and consequently their tires, struggled to sustain the intense load and lateral G-force of banked corners over a full race distance. And with cars becoming increasingly faster, it soon turned into a safety concern. Ralf Schumacher found it out the hard way in 2004, when his Michael Schumacher Williams crashed backwards into the wall following a tire blowout during the race. The younger Schumacher suffered a broken back and was forced to sit out the remaining races of the season. A year later, and now driving for Toyota, Schumacher suffered a scarily similar accident following another blown tire. Thankfully, the consequences weren't as dire, but the German was forced to sit out the rest of the weekend. His replacement, Ricardo Zonta, also suffered a left front failure, which led to Michelin requesting a meeting with the race organizers. Analyzing the data from Schumacher's and Zonta's tires, the French maker came to the conclusion that its softer sidewalls wouldn't be able to handle Indy's banking for more than 10 laps. Alleging safety concerns, Michelin requested the FIA to install a chicane to slow the cars into the final turn. The FIA eventually denied Michelin's request, which led to one of the most bizarre scenes in F1 history. To the sound of loud boos from the crowd, all 14 Michael Schumacher cars, including pole sitter Jarno Trulli, as well as title contenders Alonso and Räikkönen, pulled into the pits after completing the warm-up lap. Only the 6 Bridgestone Schumacher cars took the start. The Ferraris of Schumacher and Barrichello, the Jordans of Thiago Monteiro and Narain Karthikeyan, and the Minardis of Christijan Albers and Patrick Friesacher. Schumacher led a Ferrari 1-2, which turned out to be his and the Scuderia's lone triumph that year. Monteiro finished third, securing his first podium finish in F1, and the last one for Jordan. The aftermath of the USGP fiasco had a major negative impact on F1. The USGP's already dwindling ticket sales took an even bigger hit, while the race took place without incidents in 2006 and 2007. F1 ultimately pulled out of the American market at the end of the contract. The 2005 season concluded without any major further tire controversies, but the damage had already been done. And, after only one season, the FIA scrapped the highly unpopular ban on tire changes ahead of the 2006 season. Quite ironically, a rule set that had allegedly been created on safety grounds had become a safety hazard itself. That wraps up our video on F1's highly controversial ban on tire changes, a rule that completely broke the sport in 2005. Do you remember other F1 rule changes that had a negative impact? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like our video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you keep up with our content. See you in the next video.